Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone. And thank you very much for coming today. My name is Nigel Mcquiddy and I'm the English Language Teaching Manager for Cambridge University Press. And I'm based down here in Melbourne where it's a little bit cold and wet today, but that's okay. We're very, very excited. We've been looking forward to this session for a long time and we're so happy that you could all join us today. But this is not the usual presentation from one speaker. This is a panel session. It's a session that allows you to take part and ask questions to our panel of experts and experienced teachers. Today's panel, we will focus on higher education, and that is the context. We've already covered primary, secondary, and today is tertiary education day. So the session will last for approximately 1 hour. If you'd like to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. But without further ado, I'd like to first introduce you to our panel. We're very pleased they could join us today. First of all, you might have just seen a wonderful presentation by Dr. Jiraporn Kurchutran, who's currently the Assistant to the President for Academic Affairs at Bangkok University in Thailand. She has a background and experience in English language teaching and interpersonal communication. Her interests include intercultural communication, classroom management, and teacher-student relationships. Then we also have Manushree Vilakanu, who's currently the academic manager at a language academy, Smartway English Academy, based in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Smartway Academy provides English language classes for adult learners focusing mainly on workplace English. Manushree has a background and experience in English language teaching and training for students as well as teachers, with more than 10 years of training and educational experience in academic, soft skills training, managing, consulting, and coaching experience. She's also an English proficiency specialist with over 600 hours of sessions conducted and counting. We also have Stephen Patterson, who's Associate Professor at Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University in Japan, where he teaches English. His research and teaching interests include L2 reading, pragmatics, particularly Gracian and Neo-Gracian theory, and stylistics. In particular, the study of irony in different genres of texts. He's also interested in the intersection between stylistics and cultural analysis of literary texts as a medium for language, learning, and teaching. And last but not least, we have Tony Darth, who currently teaches academic English programs at Korea University, Seoul campus, mostly in the business school. Tony has held the position of Assistant Professor at the Institute of Foreign Language Studies at Korea University since 2014. Prior to that, he taught English programs at 3 other universities in South Korea. Originally from New Zealand, like myself, Tony graduated from the University of Auckland with a BA, double major in English and philosophy, and a master's degree in philosophy. He's given 2 workshops at KoTESOL, focusing on integrating critical thinking skills into ESL and EFL programs, along with publishing in the KoTESOL conference proceedings. Wow, what a wonderful group of experienced panelists we have today. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to start by asking a question to our panelists related to a couple of the presentations that we had today. We had a presentation this morning from Dr. Marie Yeo, of emergency remote teaching to principal online practice. And she asked the participants, how did you feel when we went to emergency remote teaching? And there were shock, panic, overwhelmed, challenged, frightened, unsupported. And then she also asked, what did you learn? And they said, patience, Zoom, Teams, Kahoot, Quizlet, Canva, Prezi. So considering the theme of this conference really is looking back, but moving forward, I'd like to open this up to any of our panelists and ask you really 3 questions in one. First of all, how did you feel? What have you learned? And what do you want to keep from this experience? Just feel free to put your hand up or just feel free to jump in and speak. Okay, great. Jiraporn?
Okay, thank you very much, Nigel. I had an opportunity to attend this morning from Dr. Murillo as well. It was very interesting presentation, and while she was asking questions and I answered her questions, I feel like, well, actually, I'm not alone in this universe. There are many teachers who actually encounter the same problems as mine. But fortunately, at my university, at Bangkok University, we prepare for blended learning for quite a while. So most of the teachers at Bangkok University are get used to using some technology, but not a pure like online 100% like that. So the first question, how did I feel? I feel kind of like shocked a little bit, just like the same answer as what we found from Dr. Yo this morning. The reason why I felt shocked was not because I don't know technology, because we have been prepared for it, but we did not prepare the course outline for the online learning. So we actually prepare like quizzes in paper. We actually make some photocopies, like a lot of photocopies of the paper for the exam, as it's a waste, and we could not do it. So we have to plan everything again, starting from day one of that when the university was closed. So I felt like pretty shocked, but again, luckily that we prepared quite well enough. And then I learned quite a lot about like Zoom, like other people too, technology. We learn a lot of application that we use in the classroom, something that we never used before. We heard the names we never used before, and then we have to use, right? And that would be like amazing. I think that our technology skills increase very fast. Everybody might feel the same way. And what I'd like to keep, and I think it's the benefit of online learning, is that we can meet like this. Like today, for example, we don't really have to fly to one place to meet and listen to good presentation, but we can join from all over the world. I can see from the chat that people from all over the world just come at once, and this is amazing. If there was no that pandemic or emergency, probably we don't really, well, eventually we will have this kind of online webinar, but not that fast. But
Yes.
now it just gives us something, good as well.
Yes,
so
that's right.
I felt.
Yeah, great answer. Anybody else?
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I would like to, So as what Jiraporn mentioned, I think it was a shock for all of us, and the worry of how are we going to transit the teachers, the students, and all of the management to change everything to online learning, virtual learning. Yeah. So we did not have a plan in Malaysia. Back in Malaysia, we don't have blended learning. Everything was physical. So it was a shock to the entire nation, I would say. We had to come up with contingency plan and the worry of if the plan is going to work, or not. And we didn't have much time to do a lot of research and development for the plan that we have came up with. So it was just a gamble. And when we came up with contingency plans, of course it did not go well as we expected it to be. But eventually what happened was people are resilient. They kind of got adapted to this. It was a challenge, I would say. It was a challenge for the teachers, for the students, for the management, and to get ourselves to adapt into something we were not exposed at all. So I think it is still a learning curve. We are still getting our students to adapt into this whole online virtual learning. And if you ask me what have I learned, is that definitely I have learned, Zoom. That's, that's the mode that we use here, the Zoom. There's a lot of things we can explore in Zoom as well. And, it has actually opened up my mind, because I'm a traditional teacher who will say, no, I want to see my students in my classroom, you see. So it has actually changed my, outlook on virtual learning. And I think we are doing well, and we are going to go into different ways to get knowledge across from different countries as well.
Yes, great. Anyone else have any thoughts on that question? I think you're on mute, Tony.
Okay, yeah, sorry if I can
Yeah, please
jump in there. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I guess to sum it up with one word at the beginning, it was just kind of unsure. Fortunately, I had been using a website for a couple of years prior. I should have been using Blackboard, but I was using another website, EasyClass. So I did have a slight advantage in that a lot of my material was already formatted to go online. And for some reason, I was just more afraid of live streaming. And when we first started out, I thought it was going to be easier to pre-record, and spent hours and hours with the YouTube doing the recordings. And actually, I've slowly came to realize actually how much easier live streaming was as opposed to pre-recording. In terms of what I've learned, though, I've learned a tremendous amount about how to use the LMS, the learning management systems. And the institute where I work, we're fortunate enough to have the Blackboard system, and just learning how to utilize and manipulate that system for more effective live streaming. I've learned a tremendous amount from that.
Great, thank you. Stephen, you have your hand up too.
Yeah, I think very similar to what other people have been saying, really. I mean, I guess there was a slight shock, but actually more than shock, I think curiosity actually in how we were going to go about conducting our classes online. I think in my case, we're very fortunate because we've got such a large language faculty that we could all kind of work together and share ideas very quickly. And we have some people who, maybe I'm more on the Luddite side, but there are some people, unlike me, who are very into their technology. And so for them, it was a kind of dream come true almost to be able to use that and share their expertise with others. And we've all taken that on board. And we've used what we feel is useful for our classes. I think in terms of what I've learned, in my case, I didn't rush into using every piece of equipment or app that was kind of introduced to me. I only want to use what I think is really going to help me to be a good language teacher. And sometimes I think technology can get in the way, as well. So it's a kind of, it's getting the balance right, I think, with that. So I kind of learned that very quickly. The one app, which I think, if it's an app, which has been useful in our context, we have Microsoft Office as a kind of university-wide application. So using OneNote has been very helpful for collaborative learning, for example, with students and teachers. And I think also how to kind of adapt assessments, I think, was the most difficult part. So teaching is one thing, but how to assess students and make sure that's being done fairly was quite a challenge. And so we didn't also want to compromise tests that we've created that we want to keep for when we go back to face-to-face classes. So we were having to adapt sort of tests and coming up with new tests and actually reducing the number of assessments for that reason. What would I like to keep? Well, I think continuing on using OneNote, we've seen the benefits of that and other kind of apps like I particularly like Jamboard. and yeah, I think it's taught me in some ways how to be more organized. Actually, I think being online, you have to be super organized. And I think it's made me more organized. So of course I want to continue being similarly organized. And yeah, and just using the technology, which I've found to be useful, and it's made my classes more efficient. So yeah, basically that's all.
Yeah, great. Fantastic answers. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, how quickly we've sort of been thrust into this situation, and how quickly we have learned things and adapted, and we've learned organization skills and learned to use these tools. I mean, I used to think Zoom was the noise a car made as it went past, you know, and now we're using it every day. Expressions like "you're on mute," I've never used that, and then suddenly I'm using it almost every day. It's amazing, isn't it? Just moving into the next question, Jiraporn gave a wonderful presentation just, well, about half an hour ago, really, wasn't it? About bridging a cultural divide in the classroom. And she talked about the balance between stability and change, openness, closeness, separation, connection, active, passive, formality and informality, and how we balance these tensions. And at the end of it, she mentioned the importance of the first class. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the first class. How do we deal with students in the first class in an online classroom who've never met each other? How do we help them to build rapport and engage them in this new sort of learning environment? Anybody who'd like to contribute to that? Jiraporn, do you want to?
Okay, maybe I should start first because I just finished my presentation on this topic, so that everyone else can continue from my start. I think that first class is very important, but unfortunately, many people will believe that first class is not that important, especially students. If they want to skip the class, they will skip the first class because they know that there will be no quiz on the first class, and they believe that, oh, you don't have to go to the first class. The teacher just give the introduction, we can ask from friend. You know, or some teacher might come to the class like first class and then finish presentation after introduction of the course, and then, well, let everybody leave, which is not the good thing to do. I think that the first class is the place where you can build up a rapport between you and your students, build up a mutual understanding and agreement. I think that making an agreement is very important. But what I will do, I can share you with my experience. What I will do, I will start my class before the first class. I will email my students and give them QR. In Thailand, we use Line application quite a lot. So I will send them QR code to my Line group. If they are studying with me, they will get my email prior to the first class, so that they can join in Line group. And then I will send them, you know, like the link to the LMS. We use Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, and whatever other, you know, LMS. And then they can go and take a look at the course outline, the syllabus, everything. This is what we can plan before ahead of time, so that they will come to the class with some idea of what the class is about, rather than just come and, you know, like you click a start in the class. You can do it before the class time. And when, especially for the first year student, they don't know each other before, it's the first time. I think that Line group or this kind of like communication channel informally, it can help you break the ice with your students. They can chat, you know, you can just throw the questions, ask them, you know, like some kind of simple question. And then during the class, on the first class, it will be very easy for you because everybody has the outline in hand. Especially in an online class, you know, you can just even tell them, set up a theme. Make it more fun. Today is green, so everybody should wear like green. And this is one of the things that you can make the student engage. They will, you know, turn on the camera to show that today we are green. Something like that. So the first class is very important. Try to find small activity with them, break the ice, and you don't have to start in the first class. You can do it before that.
Wow, right? Wow. Yeah, it's a great suggestion. Yeah. Then, Tony, do you have you got your hand up?
Yeah, I started experimenting a little bit more just at the beginning of the last, or rather this semester, just using or uploading short video clips introductory video clips. Actually, something I picked up from the talk this morning by Dr. Yeo was, yeah, the tremendous amount of resource that was available even prior to COVID. That again, I have to quite frankly admit my ignorance of until recently. And then, yeah, when I started studying more about Blackboard and researching it, and I was finding clips on YouTube and elsewhere, and I saw that a lot of North American professors and elsewhere that actually used it to give introductions to their class, to be able to navigate students, through the course. And yeah, it wasn't really until this last semester that I really started working on that. Unfortunately, now going back to, anticipating going back to offline, I'm starting to ask myself, did I stumble into so much of this too late? But no, actually the answer is no, because, and I don't know, we'll get to this a little bit later with the hybrid. I see tremendous potential still to be able to provide both platforms, the offline classroom and the online, in an integrated kind of way. But sorry, coming back to the initial point of the first class, yeah, there is a lot you can do in terms of before the class actually begins, to be able to introduce yourself and the dynamics of the class.
Oh, perfect, great. Stephen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm just remembering back to my first ever Zoom class, actually. So I think in that class, I think it was, we were kind of going into the unknown, but I think students were very excited, and it was a way of, I think the first class anyway generally is just the way you're sort of setting the tone of the class. I know that different classes in different parts of the class, the tone may be slightly different. It can vary as we go along, but I think making sure the students know what you're about, what your expectations are, and what your standards for the class are. Kind of building a kind of mutual respect as well, I think. I know that we're just touching on, we're going to come back to rapport, I think, later, but that was just touched on a moment ago. And I think having mutual respect is really vital for building rapport. But making sure that students were kind of comfortable with, in the Zoom class, making sure that students were comfortable with the various functions of Zoom, just so that from that point on, the class was going to run smoothly. Making sure they were aware that, in my case, in our institution, video must be on, unless there's a very good reason for it not to be on. So explaining that to students, so we're kind of setting the boundaries and what's acceptable and what's not. So in that respect, I think it was very important. But yeah, of course, having icebreakers, doing breakout rooms with various activities so that students could mingle and get to know each other a little bit is obviously really important as well. Making sure they're aware of the syllabus and things like that, and yeah, maybe establishing some rules for your particular class as well is a really good thing to do on the first class. I think just generally, whether you're on Zoom or not. But yeah.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah, thanks. And Mano, you have your hand up?
Yes. Well, I always believe that first class is very, very important. Why is that? Because that's the class that you are going to show your students who you actually are, and give them an opportunity to actually get to know you. So during the first class, I always tell my teachers and my associates, impress the students in the first class, and you don't have to do the hard work. They will, the next class, you will see them there, because, they know that your classes are very interesting, and, they will expect the same thing for all your other classes, you see. So during the first class, I always encourage, a session whereby we get to know each other first. And I share a lot of my personal experience of, all my students actually know my husband. Like virtually they know my husband, because I share a lot of examples about my families, or, share cute details about them. So that's how I feel the rapport that I build with them, that actually gets them to come back to my classes, because the personal touch is very important. And when you share your family details, your personal details, I mean, of course, not too personal details, the ones that you can share with them, and they feel some sort of connectivity with you. I share my Facebook details with them, my Telegram, any way that they can reach out to me at any time. So they take that very, very serious, and I don't have to actually call them or beg them to come back to my classes, So my classes are normally full because of the first class, the rapport that I've built with them during the first class.
Those are such great answers, and actually starting before the first class and setting the boundaries and building rapport, and of course teaching all your students, making sure that they all know how to use the functions on Zoom. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I'm just going to dip into the Q&A at the moment. We have a question here from Thinley in Thailand, who asks, how can we tackle challenges like students' unwillingness to respond to the teachers and shyness? Any takers for that one? How do we tackle the students' unwillingness to respond to teachers and the shyness? And I guess maybe part of that is turning cameras off and things like that. Any suggestions from the panel? Manu?
Okay. When I talk about adult students, like the oldest students I have is 79 years old. So yes. So and as I mentioned earlier, in Malaysia, we were not exposed to online learning prior to this pandemic. So it was definitely a challenge. And I have students telling me, teachers, I can't respond to you because I'm in my shower. I can't respond to you because I'm driving, So at the start, this was definitely, a big challenge for the entire organization. Just to get them to switch on the camera to say hello to us, it was a big challenge. All right. So what happens when students don't do that is that I take note of their name, and before I end the class, I let them go for that session. All right. And I take down their name, and before I end the session, I'll tell them, I would like to speak to you. And I literally spend 5 to 10 minutes to get to know them, give them some sort of compliment, if you're doing good, as Jirapon mentioned earlier, you have to tell them specifically, what did you do good in that class? But, and also tell them, where can you enhance, what are the pros and cons, you get when you participate in a class, and you are paying for the course, of course, and the course that you're paying is not cheap. So, why not make it worthwhile while you are attending the class to see some sort of improvement and some good end results. So normally it's a lot of motivation. Of course, this is an extra burden on the teachers because you have to, probably in a class, you might have 5 to 10 students who are camera shy. So I normally get, in a day, I do 2 or 3 students, talk to them personally, motivate them. And my students always say, teacher, you're good at brainwashing us. We just have to listen to you at 5 minutes and we are done. You see, so as I mentioned, the rapport is very important. So when the rapport is built, the connectivity is there. And then whatever you say, it's an easy way to get them to do things.
Great answer, yeah. Thanks. Jirapon, you have your hand up?
Yes, I actually I share the same problem as Manojri, where many of my students do not turn on the camera because they are driving, they are in some place, they are not ready to study, even though that is the study time. We actually have the same problem, and I understand the shyness of the culture, especially in Asia, we are collectivist. In collectivism, people usually do not prefer doing it alone. They want it as a group. So I think that if you can build up confidence or trying to make the majority of the students engage, the rest will do the same. We need to use the power of collectivism. That is one thing. And some small team, if you would like the students to turn on, but first of all, you have to understand that sometimes when the students do not turn on the camera, is due to different reasons. Maybe because of the internet connection, not because they're not willing to. Because, sometimes students do not have good device enough. Maybe the camera is broken, maybe the internet bandwidth is not good enough. So there are different reasons. But if they have no excuse of turning on the camera, but they still keep it off, and you would like to like make them turn on the camera, I think that maybe you have to tell them in advance. In this class, I'll let everybody turn on the camera. Let them prepare themselves. Tell them in advance that everybody is required to turn on a camera. And again, like I said, you just, like play with them a little bit, create a theme. Today, we will have like black and white theme. So everybody wear black and white and show in the camera. They will enjoy a little bit more, and they will understand why they have to turn on the camera too. And when they turn on the camera, do not ignore them. Sometimes you ask them to turn on the camera, but you do not talk to them. You just talk to yourself all the time. So there is no need for them to turn on the camera. If they turn on the camera, just talk to them, call their name, and participate with them, get them involved. So that would help a little bit. But another thing that would help, if you have very, very shy and passive student, because we know that different students have different learning style. Maybe they want to participate, but not with the camera, not with a microphone, but they prefer typing. So you should allow them to have different channels of participation. If you want to, turn on the microphone and answer in words, that's fine. But if you don't want to, just type. But at least you need to do something to get involved in the class, so that I know that you're still there, right? So there are some techniques that you can use.
Yeah, no, they're great techniques. And one of the previous panel sessions, someone said, the students in the class vote. They can turn their cameras off for one activity during the class, and they all vote. So, I mean, it's really, part of this shift to online learning has really created a lot more learner autonomy in a way, which is a good thing. And so, Stephen, you mentioned that everyone has to have their cameras on in your institution?
That's correct. It doesn't mean everyone always has their camera on, of course. And I was going to suggest the same thing. If someone's not responding verbally, then let them just respond in chat if they're more comfortable doing that. But I guess those particular students, you don't want to embarrass them in front of the class by kind of singing them out and talking to them directly during the class about why they haven't got their camera on. I think that might make the problem worse. So if you can find a time to contact them after class and just find out what is the problem, is there a problem, is it a technical problem, is it if it's something to do with their personality, then I think you have to take that on board, I think, and be kind of flexible to some extent. But yeah, I think I would address that outside of class, find out what the problem is, and then try and come up with a solution from there on. But if it means not insisting always that student has their camera on, so be it, I guess. Yeah, as an institution, that is the kind of rule for our language classes anyway.
Oh, okay, interesting, great. Tony, you have your hand up there?
Yeah, I'll just say very quickly, because I guess we do want to move on here, but I found with university students, if all else fails, if participation is part of your marking or grading rubric, then if all else fails, kind of using the stick approach a little bit. But I've had students that haven't responded during a class session, and then they've emailed me afterwards and said, oh, teacher, I hope this doesn't affect my participation score. My microphone was broken, or my dog ate it, or something. Yeah, they'll kind of come up with some, So, if students are aware that their participation in the class is also somehow being monitored, you will find that they get a little bit more motivated.
Great.
If nothing else works, that is.
Yeah. Sorry, Stephen, you have your hand up?
Just to
oh, you're on mute.
So super quickly, one thing we've found, and probably I don't know what the case is in your situations, but is that the students that tend to be more reticent actually in the classroom, when they're surrounded by all of their classmates, actually seem to speak up more when they're in Zoom. So I think it actually overall, it seems to have helped the shyer students to be more communicative. We've found, yeah, but maybe that's just our context. I'm not sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we have a question in the chat bot in the Q&A here about motivation for that thing that we all love, homework. How do you motivate students to do their homework when they are quite often sort of ignoring the teacher, even when the teacher contacts them directly? How do we motivate people? I guess that sort of ties into the theme of ongoing classes and motivation, really. So any thoughts on that one? Jirapon?
I think that maybe we can do like Manojri just mentioned before. The first class is very important. If you present yourself, impress the students, they will never get away from you. They do not want to run away from you. They will not ignore you. Try to, the first class, try to make them know that they are willing to help. That is their first point. Very important, like what Manojri mentioned before. But if the students still don't want to do homework or assignment, I think that pair work and group work would help. I was trying to think about myself when I was at school. I was lazy too. I didn't really want to do homework too. Same thing. And how could I survive? I think that pair work and group work help. But when I say pair work and group work, I'm not saying that the student will do nothing and their friends would help them, pass the course. No, not like that. But when you assign pair work or group work, you will get collaboration. You will get peer, help from their friends, from peer. But when you evaluate or doing some assessment, do not give the same score to everyone in a group. Then there should be some kind of an evaluation form for a group contribution. For example, if you let the students do like some assignment in a group of 4, just write down the name like A, B, C, D, Mr., Miss, whatever. And then after they finish that task, let them have a meeting, and everybody has to, out of 10, do you think I should get 10 out of 10? Well, I don't think so, because I didn't really help that much. Maybe like I should get like 6. And you help quite a lot, you should get like 8 or 9. So let them, negotiate and talk, have some dialogue to negotiate. I think that human has some kind of self-awareness. If you do not help at all, you will never say that I think I should get 10 out of 10. No way, right? You should negotiate and talk to your friends. So my suggestion would be pair work and group work. But when you evaluate, when you grade them individually.
Right.
Do not give them the total score. Otherwise, that would be like one person do nothing.
Yeah.
And the rest will do the whole work. All right, that would
pair
help.
work. Yeah. Okay. Pair work and group work, collaboration, and then individual marking. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So I'd like to move on to talk a little bit about. There is a famous expression, may you live in interesting times, and we certainly are living in interesting times full of uncertainty. And I'm just wondering, how do we help our learners transition back to our sort of normal or face-to-face classes? How can we support them? Obviously, we're all in a group trauma at the moment, and our learners are as well. So what can we do to help them transition back to the new, the post-pandemic normal, I guess? Any ideas about that? Jirapon, you have your hand up.
So I'm not sure whether this would be the answer to your question or not, but let me share my experience. When my university was closed during the first pandemic, and then after 4 or 5 months, we have to come back again and study face-to-face on-site. But you know what? It was so strange. At first, when the school was closed and I told everybody that, okay, we have to do an online class starting tomorrow. It has to be like a pure 100% online. Everybody complained. I mean, like all of my students and also my colleagues as well, oh, how can we do it? the students will say, oh, I don't have Wi-Fi at home. This is too difficult. I don't understand. Well, it's boring, blah, blah, blah. A lot of complaints. But when it's time for them to come back to my class, I said, well, because of social distancing, so only half of my class can be in the classroom, like actual classroom, and the other half have to be at home, and I live my lecture. So both, places can study at the same time. But believe it or not, it's very strange. The students who were on site study with me in the actual classroom, they look at me on Zoom. I don't know whether you have the same, problem or not. I think this is strange. So I think that the first time that I told them that we were going to have an online class, it was a culture shock for them. And then after a while, they kind of adapt themselves to online learning. And then when I told them to come back to on-site face-to-face learning again, they have a reverse culture shock. The second time of culture shock. And they, even though they just, they're with me, but they look at me on Zoom and I ask them, oh, why don't you just talk to me here? Why did you type in a chat box? They say, well, I don't know. I just get used to it. So I think that you need time for the transition. Especially during, if you're doing like what I do, you have to live, you teach in the class and the other half of the class of your students are at home. What you have to do is to try to blend, bit by bit, not all at one time. It is impossible for them to come back on site and everything will be the same like last year. No, it will never happen. Whatever you do online, for example, some applications, some games that you do online, you can still keep that and use it in the actual classroom. If you use like Kahoot, whatever, Padlet, whatever, because everybody has a smartphone. So even though you are in the actual classroom, they can just have the smartphone and then type. With that way, the students in class can study the same way as people who are at home simultaneously. So my suggestion would be, like the small transition and give them time to cope with the reverse culture shock.
Okay, great. Tony, you have your virtual hand up.
Yeah, okay. I'd just like to say briefly, and I kind of indicated this a little bit before, and I guess you're moving into it very soon, but with the going back to offline, I'm really looking forward to what I can actually carry back into the offline class. And particularly, I've found that we've saved a tremendous amount of time with presentations that used to take up a whole class time. And now students are just able to upload those presentations themselves. And I'm not sure if you can do this on Zoom. I've just found a way through Blackboard where I've kind of manipulated the survey system, and I've created surveys that the students have to do after watching other group presentations. And they do seem to enjoy, if you make those results available to them, and they're able to get each other's feedback, they almost seem to enjoy it more online. I never had much success with it before offline. So yeah, like the peer evaluation system online, and I was able to manipulate. So yeah, in terms of making the transition back, if we had more time, there's a few other things I could mention as well. But anyway, it's I think we really need to start thinking seriously about, what we can actually carry back into the classroom from what we've gained from the online experience. And just really make the classroom more dynamic.
Great. Stephen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think, well, from what I can see at my institution, actually, it's the teachers that are having more trouble transitioning than students. Students don't seem to be having too many difficulties at all. Last semester, we actually had something called a switch, a kind of approach to it. So we had half our classes would be online one week, and then they would come face-to-face the following week, and there'd be another group which was online of the week when we had online, the other ones were in person and so on, and it would kind of alternate like that. So we were able to kind of get used to teaching in person again through that process. So that had its own problems, because 1 week you'd be preparing online and then the activities are continuing over to the following week, and suddenly you're in person and you can't sort of do the things that you were doing online so easily. But actually, one thing we found though was students were reluctant to use university PCs at that time. And so they were all coming in with their own laptops. And that seems to be something which has continued. So I know Dr. Jiraporn was saying earlier that people were watching her on Zoom while they're actually in a face-to-face class. And there are some benefits to that in terms of sharing materials and things like that. I think sharing materials is a bit of an issue for teachers, kind of doing with paper, having to go back to the photocopy machine and so on. And actually, I think that's one benefit of being online, is that everything is online. We're saving paper, and that's got to be a good thing. But I think from going back to the teachers, I think it's very easy to kind of engage with your students because their names are all there on their screen. You have no issue with remembering names and this kind of thing. But now everyone's masked up and you have to try and remember their names. It's quite difficult. So actually that affects the class dynamic in a negative way. And we have lots of screens up in our classrooms as well. So even kind of seeing the students has actually caused some problems for teachers in terms of how to actually manage the class and engage with students effectively in terms of asking questions and so on. It's actually quite challenging in some ways. And at the moment, we've got students who are going from an online class to a face-to-face class on campus. So I think to help students, we must make sure we end our classes on time, I think, because sometimes they're having to run to a physical classroom. So yeah, maybe these are just practical things at my particular university, but maybe it's similar to other situations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to some local teachers in schools here in Australia, and they said they have a camera in the class and they have the hybrid class. The camera's following and moving around to the student speaking, but by the time it focuses, another person is speaking, so I just can't keep up, and it's a real a bit of a dilemma. They almost need a drone flying around the classroom, like following people, you know. Anyway, yeah, so that really, this hybrid teaching issue, are many of you facing this at the moment with students in the school and students at home, or how are you coping with it? Stephen, you want to add something?
Well, our students are at present, they have the choice of being either entirely online or entirely face-to-face. There's no in between. Right. I am aware of 1 or 2 classes which are being run as hybrid, but the majority of those students are online, and just about a quarter of the class are taking it in person. So again, going back to what Dr. Jiraporn was saying, the only way we can do group work is very difficult in that situation. And so the only way really to conduct group work is by everyone being in Zoom at that point. It is useful, I think, for teachers to be able to see students face to face, to see how they're coping with certain activities. But I think hybrid is the least favored approach to language classes. I think either having it all online or all in person is probably easier to manage from the teacher's perspective, at least.
Yeah. Do you think that this whole sort of Zoom era is leading to more learner autonomy, just in terms of empowering students to, to do more of their own activities and collaborating with other students and things like that? Is that something that we can take out of the pandemic, more learner autonomy that they have learned? Would that be something you've seen in your classes? Mano?
Yeah, I think with Zoom and this online learning, this new culture that we have got adapted into, I think it made students to be more independent learners. You know, what they get online is because we have provided them with enormous resources where they can actually go and look for extra activities. We don't even have to assign homework or assignment for them, because they are quite independent and they look for extra activity or anything to do, and they actually come back to us with questions like Miss Manu, you mentioned this in your class, but I found this online. Can you elaborate further about it? So I think it has actually produced more independent learners. Yeah.
So Stephen, you have your hand up?
I think in terms of, I don't know about in general, but within a particular language class, I think we've been starting to give students more choices. So, for example, they might produce a written essay, but you could give them the opportunity to not do that, but record a presentation on the same topic, for example, not do a live presentation, but do a recorded presentation. And so giving students more choices. I think teachers have been more flexible with that where they're able to be. And we actually have quite a coordinated program where I work, so there's only a certain amount of flexibility you can give. But I think giving them those choices is a good thing. And then coming back to, I think, again, what Dr. Judapon was saying earlier about there are different learner types, it kind of enables students to kind of to use their abilities to the best of their ability, as it were. Sorry, I didn't express that very well.
No, that's fine. Tony, you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I'll just say very briefly, I think it was one semester ago, towards the end of the semester, I still remember I had one student say to me in a critical thinking elective, she said, oh, she'd done some courses previously in the States, and the entire course was on Blackboard, and she actually enjoyed the course more. But she did emphasize, and I don't know if she was trying to tell me something at the time, she did emphasize if it's well set up. If it's well set up and you can navigate your way through it, and obviously the lecturers uploading the videos and the lecture notes and everything, but gosh, it's a tremendous amount of work. It's much more work than what we'd be doing in the offline class. But I was just surprised that I had that feedback to actually say that no, the LMS can actually provide sometimes a better quality.
Isn't that's fascinating, isn't it? I guess
it has that possibility.
Yeah, possibility and choice, and maybe some learners prefer that sort of method of learning. So we're coming up to about the last 10 minutes of the panel session. I'm just wondering if we could maybe, if I could give you panelists a final word that you would like to share with our participants who are listening, who have been learning from the last 3 days of the Cambridge online experience. If you have some sort of final thoughts, some pearls of wisdom that you might pass on to our participants all over Asia and all over the world, in fact. So, who would like to start? Okay. Mano, would you like to start?
What I would like to say is it's a challenging period of time we all are going through, I would say. But I would say we are doing a very, very good job. We are so resilient, the teachers, the students, the management, the organization, we are so resilient that we were able to adapt to anything that came our way. So all we need to do is continue doing what we are doing and look for more opportunities or more diverse ways of conducting your classes, and just continue doing what you do best and do it with so much of passion, whereby your students, at the end of the day, I would always tell my teachers that it's what your students take back from your class. That's the most important thing. Even if it's not 100%, 10% is a win. That's what I always tell my teachers, and I believe in that. And at the end of the day, they will really, really appreciate what you do for them in the classroom.
Well said. Judapon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to tell everybody that you are not alone. Whatever problems that you have been encountering during the past 2 years, or even before the pandemic, you're not alone. You have a lot of friends, colleagues, like all of us who are encountering the same problems, and we also provide so many solutions for you. So I think that we have been at this point and we cannot go back. I don't think that our education would go back like what we had or what we did 2 years ago. Never. We still need to use all of this technology, even though we go back, like on site, but we cannot just get away from all of this technology. So we will never go back to the way that we were before. So I'd like to give the support to everybody that, you have a lot of helpers right here. You have a lot of resources for you to help. So if you would like to develop your class, or you would like to, know the teaching techniques or whatever, you can just find so many different resources from all over the world, especially at this time. Everything is online. It's very easy for the teacher. So just, keep going. I think that everything that you've been doing, I know that online teaching is very difficult it consumes a lot of, our hard work. So I just would like to give support to all of us and good luck in, whatever you do. And I hope that everybody have a very, very good class and enjoy your teaching.
Lovely, lovely words. Tony, you have your hand up?
Okay, yeah, I'll just say very quickly. Actually, I'd just like to focus on two things that I picked up from the presentations today. And first with Dr. Yo, where she said, she kind of emphasized it's not about the technology, it still comes back to the pedagogy. But I mean, ideally what we're striving for here is a kind of integration also with the technology and the pedagogy. And of course, it still comes back to our actual, the substance of our teaching. But I think we've learned a tremendous amount about how technology can be integrated into that. And the technology has really become part of our classroom. It's actually become an essential component of the classroom. And then, yes, secondly, from Dr. Jerapon's talk this afternoon, and I really like the emphasis on the diversity, okay, and recognizing that individual diversity. But then I also think that it's challenges to accept that diversity, that individual diversity in the classroom, and then start to ask what unifies us, okay, and recognizing our differences, and then being focused on a learning goal. And I find often, yeah, it's actually, it's a learning goal that that can really be used to unify students from all kinds of diverse backgrounds. Okay, that's where I'll
really nice. Well said, Tony.
Wrap up my point today. Yeah.
Stephen, is there anything you'd like to add? Or?
I don't really have any pearls of wisdom, I'm afraid, but what I have learned, I think, is keep it simple. There is a lot of technology out there. I think it's go ahead and try it if you're comfortable with it, but just use what you are comfortable with. I don't think you should feel pressured to use the technology. I think it sometimes can become a barrier between you and your students. And I think we want to, I think out of the two presentations earlier, one of the messages that came out was, you want to connect with your students and be a human for your students. And we don't want to create kind of put barriers between ourselves and our students necessarily. So I think keep it simple, be organized. I have seen some of my son's lectures, and it sometimes looks like the lessons being kind of phoned in, as we say in the movie industry. People say sometimes phoning in their performance. And I think as long as the students see you're not doing that, and that you are genuinely passionate about what you're doing and you want to help them to learn the language, and you're finding effective ways to do that with them, then you're going to build that respect with them, you're going to build that rapport, and your students are going to be willing to learn with you. So I think, yeah, that's all I have to say, really.
Those are really like pearls of wisdom from all of you, just wonderful, heartwarming words. And I'd really like to thank all the panelists today, Jeraporn, Menno, Stephen and Tony. It's been a great session, really fascinating. And this is the final session of the 2021 Cambridge Online Experience Asia, and we hope that everybody has enjoyed these 3 days, these 6 presentations, 3 panel sessions. I'd like to thank all the presenters and all the panelists over these 3 days, but most of all, we'd like to thank you, the teachers who have attended, whether you teach in a primary school, a secondary school, private language school, at home, in a university. It's really teachers like you that have found a way to continue teaching and supporting your learners through this incredibly challenging and unprecedented time. You know, your flexibility, creativity, and your willingness to take on new technology has meant you've continued educating while a lot of other professions have had to stall and have ground to a halt. So well done to all of you. And just to echo the messages of the panel is, you're not alone, there is support, keep it simple, stay organized, and, you know, keep learning and keep moving forward. And thank you very much for attending and contributing to the success of this event. The world has changed, but you know, we've adapted well and we're moving forward, and it's just the beginning of a new journey. And we hope to see you again in the future at more Cambridge events. So thank you very much.